Alright, I want to talk about justice in the One Piece world, and thankfully there's an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to this, and I am caught up in the manga, which means I am free to use the Wikipedia page again. We will be talking spoilers, and I will do my best to put little links for what arc we will be talking about in case you need to jump around. So, starting with what this Wikipedia page describes as justice as simply a moral principle entailing the appropriate punishment to those who commit evil deeds. And of course, the Marines, who are ideally the sense of justice in this world and protecting the civilians from the pirates who are plumaging and killing people, they subscribe to a type of absolute justice, where their ideal situation is to destroy the evildoers, protect civilians. Of course, the Marines, however, in this world are actually corrupt and use this idea of justice and their positions to justify their own their own actions, no matter how evil they are and no matter how many innocent casualties are lost because of their actions. So while the Marines as an organization subscribe to the absolute justice, you do have a couple different varieties depending on the Marine and how fanatic they are. So Kuzan and his lazy justice, where he's not really wanting to act in the pursuit of justice in given situations, contrasts against the thorough justice of Magma Bastard here, who is pretty much simply, I will destroy everything and anything, and a complete eradication of pirates, no matter the cost. Then you have different types of cleansing justice, which are listed, as well as some different ones not on this page that we'll get into later with Garp and Kobe, that really focus more on family. Then you have, of course, Fujitora, who is more humanity in his justice, in terms of he is more focused on the protection of the civilians rather than the hunting of pirates, though obviously he is also hunting pirates. And then you have Kizaru, who's just like listed as unclear justice. And I love this for him. We got no idea of his motivations. He's just there, he's showing up, he's doing what he needs to do. And when something happens and he's like, oh, this is above my pay grade, I'm peacing out, or I'm sitting back and watching it, he just does. And I love that for him. I'm so looking forward to either learning more about Kizaru or just being like, it's him. His actions are a mystery. And of course, I am delighted that this Wikipedia page does a good job of organizing all the things that the Marines do in this pursuit of absolute justice and the casualties that they are willing to attribute to its pursuit of just hunting down pirates. So let's start with the destruction of an entire island, because they are looking into the history of the world. So in killing everybody, they allow for the destruction of a fleeing ship of civilians, which is completely destroyed because there is a chance that there might be a pirate on it. This leads to Robin, of course, being the only survivor. And then in what should be a very clear-cut example of protect this sweet child who has done nothing wrong in her entire life. I love Nico Robin, by the way, if you haven't noticed. So innocent sweet child who's Angel, did nothing wrong in her entire life, is taken in by civilians who should be caring and protecting her. But of course, they are turning her in for bounties, and because the Marines have lied and the world government has put out listings saying she's responsible for the destruction of all these ships and innocent people who died, when really, obviously, it was the Marines. Also talking about innocent children who deserve better, we have Ace, who was born completely innocent, through no fault of his own, had the self-worth beaten out of him. And I'm going to blame the Marines for that, even though it was also somewhat the public. We're going to sidestep that. So essentially, he is the son of Gold Roger. And the Marines knew that Roger was having a child. So they have to hunt down said child. And what do they do when they come across other children who are not Roger's son? Well, they have them killed too, looking for this one child. And who does Roger tell about his son? Garp, who is a Marine, who was responsible for hunting down Roger, but Roger is aware of Garp's values and Garp's own personal sense of justice, and trusts that he knows that the sins of the father should not pass down to the child, which means that Garp takes in Ace, raises him as his own, and his own grandson, and protects him, but raised by bandits. And then you have the tragedy that is Marineford that rips out my heart and soul. We'll get to that in a minute. First, we gotta talk about Enies Lobby real quick. The center point of justice, where set up as a court where justice should prevail. And what happens? No one has ever been declared innocent. They've all gone to their execution, because clearly that must be justice. Another example of the Marines just doing terrible things, we have Law's home city, where they were mining for, was it amber lead or something like that? Because the government can turn a profit off that natural resource and how they're using it. However, the mining of this material results in a disease that gets worse through future generations, therefore actively harming the children and their children's children. And then when the government finally is like, yeah, it's gotten out of hand, we've already mined you for all the resources that you're worth, so we can stop that now. Hey, all you guys go on quarantine, so you're not going to spread this totally contagious, it's not contagious, disease to the outside public. And then when the people revolt and be like, no, we're not staying here, government just has them all wiped out because they don't want to take responsibility for their actions, and they also do nothing to dispel the idea of this disease being contagious, which of course results in law and all his anger and becoming a pirate to get revenge for his home. You have the government reacting to situations to turn the public opinion in their best interest. So we have one of my favorite arcs of Arabasta, where Crocodile, who had been given power by the government to act as a warlord, being taken down by Luffy and saving the people of this kingdom. And then, of course, the government being like, yeah, that was actually our doing. It was Smoker, our man, who took down Crocodile and saved everybody, even though very clearly he had very little to do with it. Thankfully, this action is not repeated with Fujitora, not allowing the government to take credit for similar events in Dressrosa when Luffy takes down another warlord, again, given power by the government in Doflamingo. Cut to Impel Down, where we see how the government can treat their prisoners. It is not good. So even the ones not scheduled for execution often die through the torture and just inhumane sentences that they are subjected to in this prison. You also have different wardens who, for lack of a better word, were too evil for even the subjects there, and were confined themselves, locked in level 6, so the government doesn't have to take responsibility for their actions, and instead just lock them up so the public doesn't need to know about how cruel they were treating other prisoners. And then, of course, you have the Summit Wars, where Marineford rips out my heart and soul, resulting in me just crying a lot. But in all fairness, we do have the technical good people of the Navy who are meant to protect people going against pirates who are known for pillaging. So we're going to sidestep that one thing that actually destroyed me, and instead talk about how Magma Bastard, in his pursuit of thorough justice and not allowing any pirates to escape, even after the war should have been clearly over, he orders his men to keep fighting. And it's Kobe who speaks up saying, hey, everyone here has families to return to. It's over. The people are already dead. We have to stop this. Magma Bastard just wants to execute his own men for the sake of them being cowards and not going after pirates. And then he turns after my sweet boy Kobe, who's done nothing wrong his entire life. Then you have Doflamingo, who, A, gives the best speech in the entire series, arguably. But his idea being that justice is through power, and those with power determine what is just, not what is actually right or wrong. There is no morality, it is just through power. And I do like the similarity for this and Amazon Lily, where the idea that power is beauty, and the more powerful you are, you get to determine what is right. So there's just that little similarity in ideology there as well. Now let's talk about Garp. Darling boy. I forgive him, okay? I forgive him, mostly. So his idea being the idea that if there's no blood, he will count that as peace, brought up in the Reverie. However, you can definitely see the idea that family is more important to him than some of these ideals. And the idea of not sacrificing the innocent in pursuing a pirate. So when we are first introduced to him during the time of Axe-Hand Morgan, when he takes Helmeppo and Kobe under his crew. And you have Axe-Hand Morgan, who was idealized as, hey, I am the highest ranking Marine on this base. I should be respected. I am important. Put up a statue to my greatness. Compare that to Garp, who doesn't really care so much about his rank, so much that it allows me to act how I want and be free. That is what the rank means to him, not to be worshipped. And then you have so very much contracting ideologies. You also have Garp, who is known for his fist of love in how he punches Luffy all the time, but you can tell that he does actually care about his grandsons. Counteract that with Axe-Hand Morgan, who has never hit his son Helmeppo, but says it's because you're not worth it. So when he takes his own son hostage to get away and, flee the Marines that have captured him, it is Kobe who takes on a similar sense of Garp and says that we can't risk Helmeppo just to shoot down Morgan. I think that's part of when Garp says, I can train this student. He has the understanding that I have of protecting innocent life, even if it means letting someone else go, and he will be who will inherit my will of protecting others. So Garp the Fist, the hero of the Marines, best of the best, has never really wavered in his ideology of the Marines are the justice and his protection of the people. And he is so upset when both his grandsons go out to be pirates, but the only time we ever see him waver in his idea of justice and loyalty to the Marines is when Ace is captured. And he says that pirates are scum, he needs to protect the innocent, but this is family, so he doesn't know what to do. And he is so upset with Ace, saying, how could you do this? Why couldn't you just live the life I told you to? But Ace had to follow his own path, and it's not for Garp to interfere with that. And thankfully, he allows Luffy to follow his own path in saving his brother. However, it doesn't go the way anyone wants. But the idea is firmly set here that family is his weak point that makes him waver what his sense of justice is, but it also very much goes well with his idea of protecting people. Like I said, I do think Kobe is inheriting his type of will of what is right in this world, and the idea that Kobe says that everyone here has a family that they want to return to someday really makes me think that Garp would want to think of a peaceful world being one where we think of everyone as family. So the idea of a grandfather's love, and that can be further seen in people like Sengoku, who is essentially La's grandfather, if you look at it that way. And I'm really hoping that in the most recent panels, when he says justice will prevail, he is talking about how his own will and the need to protect others will be passed on to Kobe, and they're going to get out of this. Or that his chosen family in the Marines and those who do want to do good and protect the people will come to their rescue, whether that be in the form of Sengoku or his second-in-command, whose name I'm currently forgetting. If we look at this idea of justice in protecting one's family and treating others like family, you can apply it to other crews who value family in the form of both Whitebeard and Roger. The way that Roger trusted that Garp would protect his son, knowing that the sins of the father would not be passed on to the son, or the way that Whitebeard protects them, then you can also apply it to those who inherited their will. You have Shanks, who was trained by Roger. You have Marco, who was trained by Whitebeard and understand their values. And now Marco is protecting Whitebeard's home and the innocent people who live there. And you have Shanks, who's known for his fleet being very weak, so he can protect them. And I do put Garp along the similar ideologies and respect as Whitebeard and Roger. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing Garp, the man who loves his family and has been so conflicted in how to properly handle where they are in the world, going up against Blackbeard, or at least Blackbeard's crew, who's known for pretty much throwing his family away. He was an orphan, he went off, joined the Whitebeard pirates, who were, again, a big family, and he betrayed them. So the man who would throw away his family versus the man who would do anything for his family. All right, full disclosure, everything I learned about ethics was pretty much 2 o'clock last night, and the one class in ethics that I had, like, I don't know, 7 years ago. So let's start with Kantian ethics. So here you have people who can kind of deal in extremes. A rule should be generalized and applied to everyone. There are no examples where you can make an exception for yourself. So clearly the government in the One Piece world does not follow this method, as the Celestial Dragons and the World Nobles are viewed as exceptions for everything. Nothing they do is wrong. They can deal in slavery and torture, and it doesn't matter. You also have the idea of heavenly tributes, where the only people protected are the ones who can pay. They also deal with the idea of people are ends in themselves, so they can't be treated to a means to an end. This is definitely complete opposite to the government in One Piece, as they had the warlord system in place, and they were using them where it was valuable to them, but the second that they were no longer needed, they tossed them out and declared that they were once again enemies of the Marines. To the public, they present more of a utilitarianism consequence or view of ethics, where it's not so much the actions that make something just, but the consequences of those actions. So in their interpretation, no matter the cost, so long as it stops a pirate, then that makes them right and then just. However, A, that's terrible, and B, that's a lie. Switching over to the divine command theory, this is the idea that something is right because God said so. And it turns out the One Piece world and government is leaning more towards this one, as we have the one with the pointy hat who is orchestrating all these events, and everything that they say is right because the world is created as God wills it. And don't get me wrong, this is absolutely terrible, but it is very entertaining that you have CP0 who are just fanatically loyal to either the Celestial Dragons, the world government, or, of course, pointy hat person here. So in terms of justice and how things are distributed or procedures that are made through the government, it's pretty bad. You have distribution in the terms of heavenly tributes. Everything goes to the government to support the Celestial Dragons and their lifestyle without giving anything back to the smaller communities. You're mostly on your own, and there's no guarantee of governmental protection. Even if you pay these heavenly tributes, they're just kind of going to do what they want anyway. Procedural justice is almost non-existent as well, as because whatever marine you come across, it depends on their own personal justice and how they're going to handle the situation. And if you go to the upper courts at Enies Lobby, we already know that you're going to be found guilty. If you end up a prisoner and impaled down, well, you better hope that someone in a straw hat's breaking through there and you just also get it while he's causing chaos. Now, there's also retributive and restorative justice, the idea of how to make amends and what to do when people have wronged you in the past. And there's no example in One Piece that I like more than the ideas presented in Fishman Island, how you have three very different ways that you can act among this. And don't get me wrong, I did not understand Queen Otohime's actions for the majority of this. I'm like, you're too good to be true. This can't work in any kind of situations. God love this woman. She is stronger than me. So essentially, the fishmen have been prosecuted and discriminated against for generations and years, and terrible things are happened to them and are still happening to them. Sold into slavery, tortured, everything is just going wrong. Queen Otohime is one who just wants to look to a better future for the children and next generation, no matter what that takes. So when she sees someone who is burglarizing a store and running away with food, she slaps them and saying, "How dare you? Why are you doing this?" And they're like, "I had no choice. My business had been burned down. My children are hungry." And again, she slaps him saying, "You would raise your child on stolen money." Being all holier than thou is like, "Ma'am, his children are hungry. What does it matter where the money comes from so long as they are fed?" But then she breaks down crying once again, saying, "I as a leader have failed you to not recognize your pain, not put the issues in place that prevented you from coming this way, being so desperate, but you cannot continue in this cycle of misfortune and harming others because it's just never going to end." And think about the children. Her entire thing is the next generation. So she's acknowledging that she plays a role in the situation that led to this, but also that this cannot be allowed to go into this cycle. And I love this woman. Her need not to allow children to see a man shot, no matter how he threatened her, led to the protection of Don Quixote, I can't pronounce. We've established I'm bad with names, but protecting him, and in doing so will protect her daughter in the future, showing how the actions can protect the next generation. Again, just not letting the children see the worst outcome. This is completely contradicted with the ideas of Fish Tiger, who, again, terrible situation, was in slavery, had to rebel and save the others, and no matter what he's doing, he is fighting against the world government and nobles and anyone in just to stop slavery as a whole, and he's far more violent in his actions. I'm willing to forgive and I'm willing to look past what humans have done to them, to the point that it will lead to his death because he refuses to accept human blood, but he doesn't want the public to know that, so that further stirs the hatred towards humans, as it's put out there that, hey, humans refuse to give him blood, not that he refused to accept it. And despite their very different, one violent, one peaceful ways of dealing with how their people are being treated, they never really hated each other. They understand that they were tackling one issue from different directions, and hopefully one of them actually worked out right. And Fish Tiger did say near the end that he wished he could have let go of the hatred in his heart the way Otohime had, but he was just unable to. Contradict this with Hody, who is just absolutely the worst. He is Queen Otohime's worst case scenario come to fruition. The news and stories of what is happening to their people, to the people in slavery, to what Fish Tiger had been doing, to what Arlong was doing, and the Sun Pirates, all the negativity of it, though, going down to the next generation, and he would take that, despite having never been prosecuted himself against humans, and his interpretation just became, fishmen are better, and I'm going to destroy all humans, and that hatred trickling down to the next generation, and that healing never happened for them. Personally, I really like the idea of justice, how it's depicted in Supernatural. So spoilers for, I think it's like season 4 and 5, maybe 3 and 4. We'll say 5 to be safe. But you have the idea of peace and freedom, which is a perfect representation of the One Piece world as well. So essentially in Supernatural, you have the angels and the demons, and they're essentially the apocalypse. And the angels are convinced that it's time to have the war so there can be peace on Earth. The greater good will lead to a good outcome. They think they can win the war. Again, peace. But there's going to need to be a war first. And that will result in a lot of people dying. And you have the Winchesters who are being like, hey, how about we stop the apocalypse instead? The angels being like, no, we think we'd be able to win. Yeah, but a lot of people are going to die. Not our problem. So they choose instead, rather than to live peacefully under their rule, they want free will, even if that means a lot of pain and an imperfect world, and they're going to fight against the angels and the demons to stop this war. So the same way that One Piece, you have Luffy, who just wants freedom to do what he wants, make his own decisions, sail the seas with his crew, and not worry about the restrict ideas of justice of these other Marines, so long as he's a good person, acting good, and anytime he sees someone's free will being infringed upon, he will work to liberate them. Not so much the free will, but if a dream that they have is being acted upon, or if you just gave them food, then he'll probably help out as well. All right, that's it. I'm done talking. Bye.